Stephan went from a realtor in California into the superstar of YouTube finance over the course of just a few years, and he basically created the online personal finance niche as we know it today, but over the last couple of years, things have started to go downhill for him. It might not surprise you to hear then that Kevin Pathrath, better known as Meet Kevin, has been suffering the exact same fate, going from one of the most successful and profitable finance YouTubers around to a shadow of his former self, incapable of seeing any growth and basically just milking this cow for everything it's worth. He's been tainted by a major FTX sponsorship, other dodgy dealings with various brands, and a ludicrously bad track record when it comes to investing in stocks, despite the fact that that is what his entire channel is about these days. As the bubble for tech stocks exploded and as Cathie Wood became the darling love child of every idiot with a brokerage account, Meet Kevin saw his meteoric rise, but as the dot-com bubble 2.0 has started to deflate, so too has Kevin's success. The only problem is his ego is as large as it's ever been. As for the downfall of Meet Kevin, we'll start with something that he no doubt doesn't want us to talk about: his arrest after being caught out driving when he was suspected of being drunk and refused to give a breathalyzer test to prove his innocence. Now, I'm not going to claim that he's guilty of this crime, as the only way to do that would be to gather some evidence at the time, the exact same evidence that Kevin just refused to give the police, which actually led to his arrest. To be honest, the real crime is that god-awful vest he insisted on wearing on this night out on the town with his boys. As it turned out though, not allowing the government to gather any evidence to convict you is a great way to ensure the government can't convict you, and after months of deliberations, the police ended up dropping their charges, but not before releasing the footage for all to see. Link down below in the description if you'd like to amuse yourself. Now again, I'm not claiming that Kevin was guilty, mainly because I don't want to get sued, but drunk driving is hardly a sign that everything in your life is going according to plan, and again, neither is the atrocious vest he insisted on embarrassing himself in. Now, speaking of lawsuits and how I really don't want one, that leads us on to Dave Ramsey and the drama between he and Kevin. Now, Dave Ramsey, for those of you who don't know, is a stalwart of personal finance, and he's been providing financial advice that isn't financial advice to those who need help for decades now. He's written a few books and now just basically runs a TV station where fans call in and ask for his advice. Now honestly, his point of view on the world is a little basic, to be honest. Dave thinks that investing in real estate is terribly dangerous and should never be done by anyone, and he dreams about a 60-40 stocks and bond portfolio as he falls asleep each night. And he for some reason doesn't like the clearly superior snowball method when it comes to paying off large debts, but by and large, Dave Ramsey is an incredibly well-respected man who really does just want the best for people, for them to pay off their debts and stop being a slave to their consumerism with their $2,000 a month vehicles. So what happened here? Well, allegedly, again because I don't want to get sued, Dave Ramsey sued Meet Kevin because Kevin was apparently joining a private group run by Ramsey's company and then stealing private information and using Ramsey's product fraudulently to benefit Kevin and to damage Dave. Talking about stains on Kevin though, we now have his disastrous political career where he took a leaf out of the book of our beloved Arnold Schwarzenegger and ran for California governor. The only problem is that California is a different state today, and Kevin is a different person. That didn't stop him from giving it a go though and begging his viewers for donations to fund his private jet flights, despite the fact that he has frequently bragged about the fact he's made over $20 million from his YouTube over recent years, including a ridiculous $4 million in 1 month during his height over a year ago. He went on campaign and his channel became very political all of a sudden. Every video was about getting people to vote for him and get rid of the dreaded Gavin Newsom, which is a noble cause, to be honest. Kevin plowed millions of dollars into this pipe dream, admittedly of other people's money, but still a large investment to say the least. In the end though, Newsom won handedly, with almost 62% of the votes being against recalling him, which is what Kevin was canvassing for, and if the recall was successful, well, Kevin still wouldn't have won, getting only 9.6% of the votes for that vote. Now, months on from that event, and it's like nothing ever happened, except Kevin now has a taste for private jets. He barely mentions this whole ordeal at all, and the money donated to his cause has just been written off as an unfortunate result of democracy. Whether or not those who actually donated feel the same way though, who can say? Finally, we have to talk about the fact that Kevin bills himself as a trader, an investor, a stock guru who will guide you through tumultuous markets and help you make your millions just like he made his. but he's a pretty damn poor trader and really doesn't know what he's talking about 90% of the time. By all accounts, when he started off as a YouTuber, he was talking about something he was actually pretty good at, real estate, being that he was a successful realtor and a successful property investor. But he quickly worked out that he could make more money by pivoting his online presence and talking about whatever was popular instead. Why spend 40 hours a week working as a realtor to make a few $100,000 a year when you can spend 30 hours a week talking about stimulus checks online while people are desperate for them in lockdowns and make a few $100,000 every single month? So Kevin became the preeminent stimulus check guy on YouTube and quickly rose to the top of this niche, pulling in literally millions of dollars. But of course, what goes up must come down, and after a while, lockdowns ended, and so did the stimulus checks, so Kevin once again found himself forced to pivot his channel, and this time he became the self-proclaimed #1 stock guru around. The post-COVID bull run had started to take off, and any company which claimed to be a tech, blockchain, or even just growing saw its share price soar. So Kevin jumped in along, in particular with Tesla and anything else that Cathie Wood was stupid enough to buy, and he started making as many YouTube videos about these overvalued stocks as he could. Now, while I am about to mock relentlessly his failure as an investor, I do have to quickly note that Kevin is a fantastic YouTuber and has reinvented his channel multiple times, which is no easy thing to do. Now for the problems though, inflation, according to Kevin, not an issue in 2021, and it would never be an issue ever, something that proved in my mind just how little he knew about economics. Investments then, well, he bought $1 million of Peloton stock just before that company crashed 94% over the next year. Apparently, Kevin really did think that sticking iPads onto stationary bikes would change the world. He bought Coinbase at its IPO, convinced it would rocket off into space forever, only for that company to crash 90% as well. Affirm, a company destined to revolutionize the payments industry by copying Klarna, well, another of Kevin's favorites, and another company that has fallen by over 90%. Robinhood, DocuSign, Zoom, all some of Kevin's biggest plays, and all companies that have seen their share prices tank. Of course, there is his favorite stock of all, Tesla, which at some points he has owned over $10 million worth of, but was he able to recognize that it was a bubble, that a valuation of over $1 trillion was not going to last? Well, sadly, no, he didn't, and as a result, he's ridden his golden goose down over 70% for the last year, hardly what you'd expect from a stock guru destined to help you become rich. Don't worry though, Kevin does have an ETF where you can follow him directly and literally copy his trades, and what's in this groundbreaking fund? Well, a quarter of it sits in Tesla, of course, 14% in treasuries, and the rest in cookie-cutter tech companies like Taiwan Semiconductor, Apple, and Nvidia. Oh, and don't forget Lululemon for some weird reason. The weird thing about it though is that every video these days, Kevin tells everyone how he thinks the markets are going to continue to fall and that we should not be buying up stocks, and yet here his ETF is with all long positions. Flip-flopping has become a personality trait for Kevin, but this just seems a tad too rich. All of this is to say, Kevin is not the authority on stocks he'd like you to think he is, and his performance is terrible. Please don't make any investment decisions based on what he says in his videos at all. Please take everything with a grain of salt, because he does have a history as a flip-flopper, as someone who will pivot to just about anything that he thinks will make him money. His views on YouTube are down. He's stuck in this old style of just a talking head and fire on the thumbnail, and just like Stephan, he sticks out as a dated YouTuber who isn't keeping up with the times. Iman Gadji, Jordan Welch, and Bia Heza are soaring ahead, growing their audiences and doing so without their own subreddits hating their guts. Honestly, I'd love for Kevin to show some growth, for him to innovate and disrupt once more, and maybe be a little bit more honest than he has been recently. Oh, and maybe he shouldn't be boasting about his brand new private jet just a couple of months after his fans lost millions trusting his advice and using FTX, especially considering how much he was paid for pushing them towards that dumpster fire. Now, as we've mentioned in this video, Stephan has also seen a decline in views and reputation as well, and although FTX and established titles played a big part of this, there are so many other factors at play. Click here to find out what exactly happened to the king of finance.